Dr. Kirok's four eyes blinked in different patterns as he stared at the data screen. His mantis-like arms clicked against the metal desk while his mind tried to process what he was seeing. The numbers made no sense. They could not be real. For 300 years, the Galactic Council had marked certain areas of space as forbidden zones. These places killed everything that entered them. Ships disappeared. Entire crews vanished without sending even one message back. The lucky ones who escaped came back insane, speaking about impossible things that hurt to think about. Zone Sigma 7 was one of the worst. Reality itself seemed broken there. Time moved in circles. Space folded like paper. Strange storms made of pure thought swept across empty void. Every species in the galaxy knew to stay far away from such places. But according to his instruments, someone was there right now. Someone was working inside Zone Sigma 7 like it was a normal Tuesday afternoon. Kirok's colleague, a blue-scaled reptilian named Vex, noticed his confusion. "What troubles you, friend Kirok?" "Look at these readings," Kirok said, his voice shaking slightly. "Something is moving around inside Sigma 7. Something intelligent. It has been there for 6 hours. Vex slithered closer to the screen. His cold blood made thinking slower, but it also made him very careful about details. "Perhaps your equipment is broken?" "I checked 3 times. The signals are clear. Someone is not just alive in there. They are working. They are fixing something. Two scientists looked at each other. In all their years of studying the forbidden zones, nothing like this had ever happened. Every probe they sent in was destroyed within minutes. Every robot went silent. Every automated ship came back as twisted metal that hurt to look at. Yet someone was in there humming. Yes, humming. The audio sensors were picking up a simple tune. Someone was whistling while they worked in the most dangerous place in known space. 3,000 light-years away, Day wiped sweat from his forehead and looked at the communication relay he was repairing. The metal was bent in ways that seemed impossible, but he had seen worse. Working in space meant dealing with weird problems every day. Around him, purple lightning crackled through the void. The local space-time was having one of its bad days, turning inside out every few minutes. Day had learned to just work around it. When reality flipped upside down, he took a short break and waited for things to settle. "There we go," he said to himself as the relay came back online. The twisted metal straightened out under his tools, though it still looked strange. Everything in Sigma 7 looked a bit off, like a picture drawn by someone who had never seen the real thing. He checked his watch. Almost time for lunch break. His ship, the small repair vessel Busan's Hope, was parked nearby. Inside, he had packed some rice and soup that his grandmother used to make. Working always made him hungry. Started packing his tools, completely unaware that his presence in this place was causing panic across multiple star systems. To him, Sigma 7 was just another work zone. A bit weirder than most, but every job had its problems. Back on the research vessel, Harmony's Edge, Dr. Kirok was having trouble breathing. His 4 lungs were working too fast as he sent emergency messages to the Galactic Council. "This is Dr. Kirok of the Science Division." He spoke into his communicator. "I need to report an impossible situation. Someone is alive and working inside Zone Sigma 7. Request immediate investigation." The response came back within minutes. "Confirmed, Dr. Kirok. We are seeing the same readings from our long-range sensors. Can you identify the species?" Kirok looked at his screen again. The life signs were familiar, but that made everything worse. "The biological markers suggest humans, sir." A long silence followed. Then, "Humans? Are you certain?" "Yes, sir. The DNA patterns match human signatures." "But that cannot be possible. Humans are barely 50 years into space travel. They have no technology that could protect them in a forbidden zone. Continue monitoring. We are sending a diplomatic vessel to their nearest colony." Captain Yule was enjoying his morning coffee when the communication system on the Soul's Promise started making urgent noises. He set down his cup and walked to the control room, wondering what emergency had come up this time. "Captain," said his communications officer, a young woman named Sue. "We have an incoming message from the Galactic Council. They say it is very important." Yule nodded and activated the main screen. A tall, thin alien with silver skin appeared. This was Ambassador Thexmal, someone Yule had met only once before at a trade meeting. "Captain Yule," the alien said, his voice carrying strange harmonics. "We need to discuss a serious matter immediately. Are you aware that one of your people is currently inside Zone Sigma 7? Yule blinked. "Sigma 7? Oh, you mean the repair zone. Yes, we sent Dee there this morning to fix a communication relay. Should be done by lunchtime." The alien's face went through several color changes. "Repair zone? Captain, do you understand what Sigma 7 is?" "Sure," Yule said, feeling confused. "It is the place with the weird space storms. Makes radio signals act funny, so we have to fix the equipment more often. Day does not mind the work." Ambassador Thexmal made a sound like breaking glass. "Captain, Zone Sigma 7 is classified as a Class X forbidden area. No life should be able to survive there. We have lost 17 research expeditions trying to study it from a safe distance." Now Yule was really confused. "Forbidden? But we have been working there for 3 years. Day goes there twice a month. Sometimes Bo helps him with the bigger repairs." The alien sat down heavily. "This is impossible. How are your people surviving in there?" Yule scratched his head. "Surviving what?" "I mean, the gravity is a bit strange, and sometimes the tools float away when space decides to turn sideways. But it is not dangerous. Just weird." For several minutes, nobody spoke. Ambassador Thexmal stared at the human captain like he was looking at a ghost. Finally, he found his voice again. "Captain Yule, we need to meet in person, immediately, and we need to speak with this die person. What you are describing should not be possible." "Of course," Yule said, "but I should warn you, Day is just a simple repair worker. He probably cannot explain much about the technical stuff." After the call ended, Yule sat back in his chair and thought about the conversation. He had always known that aliens were strange, but this was confusing even by their standards. Zone Sigma 7 was just a work site, a bit unusual but nothing scary. He decided to call Dee and warn him that some important aliens wanted to ask questions. Day would not like that. He was shy around strangers, especially the kind with too many eyes or weird voices. But if the Galactic Council was this interested in their repair work, maybe humans were doing something more important than they realized. Ambassador Thexmal had never felt fear like this before. His crystalline body was designed to process information at incredible speeds. But what he learned about humans made no sense at all. The more he studied their files, the more impossible everything became. His ship, the Crystal Dawn, approached the human colony vessel, New Busan, slowly. Through the viewing ports, he could see the massive ship rotating gently in space. It looked normal enough, just like any other colony ship. But somewhere on that vessel were beings who treated death zones like neighborhood parks. "Sir," said his aide, a floating jellyfish creature named Kim, "the humans have agreed to meet with us. Their captain sounds very friendly." Thexmal made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Friendly? Of course they are friendly. They probably think we are here for a social visit." The docking process went smoothly. Human technology was simple, but effective. As Thexmal walked through the airlocks, he noticed something odd. The walls were covered with pictures and plants, real living plants growing in small pots everywhere. Most spacefaring species kept their ships sterile and clean, but humans seemed to want reminders of home. Captain Yule met them at the docking bay, smiling widely. "Welcome aboard. I hope your trip was comfortable. Would you like some coffee? My cook makes excellent pastries, too." This casual friendliness made Thexmal even more nervous. "Captain, we are here to discuss a matter of galactic importance. Your people should not be able to survive in the forbidden zones." "Oh, the weird zones," Yule said, leading them through corridors decorated with children's drawings. "Yes, Dr. Nari wanted to talk to you about those. She has been studying them for years." They entered a large room that looked more like a garden than a laboratory. Plants grew everywhere and soft music played in the background. A woman in her 40s looked up from a computer screen, pushing her glasses up her nose. "You must be the council representatives," Dr. Nari said. "I am so excited to meet you. We have so many questions about galactic science." Thexmal felt like he was in a dream. "Dr. Nari, we are here because your people are working in areas that should kill them instantly. This is not a scientific exchange." Nari's face lit up with interest. "Oh, you mean the reality flux zones? Yes, those are fascinating. We have research stations in 17 of them now. Would you like to see the footage?" Before Thexmal could object, Nari activated a large screen. The image showed a human in a simple spacesuit collecting samples from crystals that seemed to exist in several dimensions at once. Space around him twisted and bent like melted plastic. "That is Hyun," Nari explained proudly. "He is our geology specialist. Very brave young man. Watch this part." The crystal Hyun was studying suddenly expanded, wrapping reality around itself like a blanket. For a moment, Hyun existed in 3 different places at the same time. Instead of panicking, he simply waited for the effect to pass, then continued his work. Kim, the jellyfish aide, floated backward in shock. How is he not insane? How is he even alive? "Oh, Hyun handles the weird stuff very well," Nari said. "Some people get dizzy when space folds up, but he just goes with it. Very calm. Personality." Thexmal forced himself to speak. "Dr. Nari, that zone has killed every research team we ever sent there. Our best scientists, protected by the most advanced equipment in the galaxy, died within minutes." Nari looked genuinely confused. "Really? But it is not that dangerous." I mean, yes, you have to be careful not to step on the gravity wells, and sometimes the air tries to turn inside out, but if you just relax and let things happen, it is fine." "Let things happen?" Thexmal repeated. "Dr. Nari, these zones violate the basic laws of physics." "Well, yes," Nari agreed. "That is what makes them so interesting. Normal physics does not work there, so you have to think differently." Captain Yule gestured to another screen. "Would you like to meet Bo? He is working in Zone Delta 3 right now. Very good with the temporal loops." The screen showed a young man sitting calmly inside what looked like a tornado made of time itself. Past and future versions of himself flickered in and out of existence around him. He was eating lunch and reading a book, completely ignoring the chaos. "Bo figured out how to navigate the time streams," Yule explained. "He says the trick is not to think about it too hard. Just feel your way through." Thexmal watched in horror as Bo stood up, waved at 3 different versions of himself, and walked through a wall of twisted time. He emerged on the other side. 30 seconds before he had started walking, created a stable time loop, and continued eating his sandwich. "This is impossible," Thexmal whispered. "Time paradoxes should destroy reality itself." "Oh, they do," Nari said cheerfully, "but only for a few minutes. Then everything settles down again. Bo has learned to work with the rhythm of it." Kim was making distressed, bubbling sounds. "How do you train for this? What technology protects them?" "Technology?" Yule looked puzzled. "They just wear normal spacesuits. The zones are not really dangerous once you get used to them." "Not dangerous?" Thexmal's voice cracked. "Captain, we have documented 17 different expeditions that were completely destroyed by these zones. Ships melted into impossible shapes. Crews found dead with their minds turned inside out." Dr. Nari frowned thoughtfully. "What kind of people were on these expeditions?" "Our best scientists, highly trained researchers with advanced degrees in theoretical physics." "Ah," Nari said, nodding. "That might be the problem." "What do you mean?" "Well," Nari explained, "people who think too much about how things should work probably have trouble when things do not work that way. Our people who do best in the zones are usually pretty relaxed types. They do not worry about understanding everything." She pulled up another video. This one showed Tai, a maintenance worker, having a conversation with something that looked like a geometric shape made of pure mathematics. The shape was explaining something in a language that hurt to hear, but Tai was nodding and asking questions. "Tai is very good with the entity communications," Nari said. "He does not try to understand what they are saying exactly. He just listens, to the feeling behind the words. Thexmal felt his crystalline structure beginning to crack from stress. Dr. Nari, that entity is a Class 9 reality distortion. Looking at it directly should cause immediate psychological breakdown. Oh, you mean Zigzag? Nari laughed. Yes, he is a bit strange looking, but very friendly once you get to know him. Tay brings him coffee sometimes. Coffee? Zigzag likes the smell. He does not drink it, obviously, but he enjoys the experience. Very polite fellow. Captain Yule checked his watch. Speaking of coffee, Day should be back from Sigma 7 soon. Would you like to meet him? He could probably answer your technical questions better than we can. Thexmal wanted to scream. Instead, he managed a weak nod. Yes, I would very much like to meet this Day. As they waited, Dr. Nari showed them more footage from the various zones. Humans working calmly in environments that defied every known law of science. They treated reality-bending anomalies like minor inconveniences. They made friends with entities that existed outside normal space-time. They repaired equipment that should not be able to function in such impossible conditions. The strangest thing, Nari said, is how peaceful the zones have become since we started working there. They used to be very chaotic, but now they seem almost happy, like they enjoy having visitors who are not afraid of them. Thexmal realized that everything he thought he knew about the universe might be wrong. And somehow these simple, friendly humans held the key to understanding why. 3 weeks later, the most unusual expedition in galactic history was preparing to launch. The target was Zone Omega-1, a place so dangerous that even the Galactic Council's computers refused to calculate survival probabilities. The numbers always came back as impossible to determine due to reality failure. Commander Veltar of the Krugan Empire stood in the docking bay of his warship, checking his equipment for the 20th time. His reptilian warriors were the toughest soldiers in known space, bred for battle and trained to face any enemy. But looking at Zone Omega-1 through the viewports made his cold blood feel even colder. Commander, said his aide, the mental shields are charged to maximum power. The reality anchors are online. All warriors have taken the antipsychosis drugs. Veltar nodded grimly. His people had spent 2 weeks preparing for this mission. Every piece of equipment had been tested and retested. The ship's hull was covered, with protective symbols designed by the best scientists in 12 star systems. They were as ready as anyone could be for a journey into hell. Nearby, the research vessel Mind's Eye carried Zix, the most powerful psychic in the Mindari collective. Her brain was protected by layers of mental barriers that could stop a supernova's worth of psychic energy. She had studied the reports about Zone Omega-1 for months, preparing her mind for contact with entities that existed beyond normal thought. And then there was the human ship. The Soul's Promise looked tiny next to the heavily armored Krugan warship in the Mindari research vessel. It had no special shielding, no reality anchors, no protective symbols. Captain Yule had packed some extra coffee and asked his engineer Tay to bring along his toolbox. Are you certain you do not need additional protection? Ambassador Thexmal asked over the communication system. He was staying safely outside the zone, monitoring everything from a distance. We should be fine, Captain Yule replied. Tay has been to Omega-1 twice before. He says it is actually quite peaceful there. Veltar made a growling sound. Peaceful? The last expedition to Omega-1 found the crews of 3 ships fused into the hull, still screaming after 200 years. Oh, that, Tay said over the radio. Yes, that was very sad, but I think those people got scared and tried to fight the zone. You cannot fight these places, you have to work with them. Zix spoke up, her mental voice echoing in everyone's minds. I have prepared for contact with hostile entities. My psychic defenses are absolute. Actually, Tay said, the entities there do not like mental barriers. Makes them think you do not trust them, might want to turn those off. The silence that followed was deafening. Turn off my mental defenses? Zix asked. That would be suicide. Your choice, Tay said cheerfully, but they are pretty friendly once they know you are not going to hurt them. The 3 ships approached Zone Omega-1. Together, from the outside it looked like a sphere of absolute darkness surrounded by rings of twisted light. Space itself seemed to flinch away from it, creating ripples in reality that hurt to look at. Sensors are going crazy, Veltar reported. Reality. Distortion is off the charts. Beginning full defensive protocols. My mind shields are registering contact with 17 distinct hostile entities, Zix added, initiating maximum psychic barriers. Oh, you can see them already? Tay asked. Wave hello? They like that? Wave hello? Veltar repeated. Sure. Look, there is whispers in the dark. And that big swirly one is called helpful but confused. The one that looks like angry mathematics is just shy. Do not take it personally. As they crossed into Zone Omega-1, reality immediately began breaking down. The Krugan warship's hull started changing colors that did not exist. Veltar watched. His weapon systems turn into poetry written in a language he could feel, but not understand. Shields failing, he reported. Warriors are beginning to show signs of mental distress. In the corner of his vision, geometric shapes were having a conversation about the meaning of purple. His toughest soldiers were sitting on the floor, staring at their hands like they had never seen fingers before. Zix was having an even worse time. The entities of Zone Omega-1 were pressing against her mental barriers like curious children trying to peek through a window. But these children existed in 11 dimensions and thought in concepts that could drive civilizations insane. Cannot maintain barriers, she gasped. Too much. Impossible information. One of her psychic shields cracked and suddenly she could hear the entities talking. They were discussing whether blue tasted better on Tuesdays and whether the concept of sadness should be allowed to wear hats. The logical part of her mind began shutting down to protect itself. Meanwhile, Tay parked the human ship next to a structure that seemed to be built from crystallized time. He turned off the engines and opened a window. Hello, everyone, he called out to the entities floating nearby. I brought coffee again. A shape made of living sound drifted over to his ship and made pleasant humming noises. Tay poured coffee into a cup and held it near the window. The entity absorbed the smell and radiated something that felt like gratitude. How are things going? Tay asked. Still working on that big project? The entities began explaining their work in voices that existed before language was invented. They were redesigning the local laws of physics to be more comfortable for visiting friends. Reality was too rigid, they said. They wanted to make it softer, more flexible. Tay nodded along, understanding maybe one word in 10, but getting the general idea. That sounds great. Just try not to break too much stuff, okay? Some people get upset when gravity starts working backwards. Captain Yule joined the conversation, offering suggestions about which physical laws were most important to keep working. The entities took careful notes in a writing system that used colors instead of letters. Commander Veltar, Yule said over the radio, are you doing okay over there? Veltar tried to answer, but his voice came out as the smell of Tuesday morning. His ship was now shaped like a question mark, and his warriors were having philosophical discussions with their own equipment. We need immediate evacuation, he managed to say in something close to words. Zix is in even worse condition, Tay observed. Her ship is turning inside out, and I think her mind might be folding up like origami. Captain Yule sighed. I guess we should head back. Sorry about this, everyone, he called to the entities. Our friends are not feeling well. The entities made sympathetic noises and offered to fix the visitors' ships. They meant well, but their idea of fixing involved turning the metal into living crystal that sang opera. Better not, Tay said diplomatically. Different species, different needs. But thanks for offering. The journey back to normal space took 3 hours. By the time they reached safety, Commander Veltar's ship had returned to its normal shape. But his warriors needed 6 weeks of therapy to remember how to walk in straight lines. Zix spent 2 months in a mental hospital, drawing pictures of mathematical equations that expressed pure emotion. The doctors said she would eventually recover, but she would never again be able to look at the color purple without giggling. So, Ambassador Thexmal asked Tay during the debriefing, how exactly do you survive in there? Tay scratched his head. I guess we just do not try to make sense of it. The zone does not follow normal rules, so we do not use normal thinking. We just go with whatever happens and try to be helpful. But surely you must feel some fear, some confusion. Oh, sure, Tay admitted. The first time I went to Omega 1, I was pretty confused. But the entities there are really nice once you get to know them. They just think differently than we do. Thexmal looked at the reports from the expedition. 2 of the most advanced species in the galaxy had been completely overwhelmed by Zone Omega 1. Their best warriors and most powerful psychics had been reduced to helpless confusion within hours. But the humans had spent their time there having coffee with cosmic horrors and offering interior decorating advice to beings made of pure impossibility. It was becoming clear that humanity possessed something unique in the galaxy, something that allowed them to survive where others could not. The question was, what exactly was it? Dr. Quindar had studied the minds of 47 different species during his career as the galaxy's leading xenopsychologist. He understood how Krugan warriors thought in terms of honor and battle. He could predict the logical patterns of Veltari scientists. He even had theories about the collective consciousness of the Mindari. But humans made no sense at all. For 6 weeks he had been analyzing the data from the Zone Omega 1 expedition. The results were impossible to explain using any known psychological models. Every other species followed predictable mental patterns when faced with reality-distorting environments. They either tried to understand logically, which drove them insane, or they shut down mentally to protect themselves. Humans did neither. They just adapted. The pattern is completely unprecedented, he explained to the assembled Galactic Council. His tentacles waved as he spoke, showing his excitement. When faced with logical impossibilities, most species experience what we call cognitive cascade failure. Their organized thought processes collapse. Ambassador Thexmal leaned forward. But humans do not experience this failure. No, in fact, they seem to enjoy impossibilities. Look at this brain scan from Engineer Tay during his conversation with the entities. The screen showed a human brain in action. Instead of the organized, orderly patterns that other species displayed, Tay's brain was a chaos of activity. Different regions were firing randomly, making connections that should not exist, processing information in ways that violated every rule of psychology. His brain should not be functional, Dr. Quindar continued. Yet he was having a perfectly normal conversation with beings that exist outside normal reality. He was happy. Council Member Vix, a floating energy being, flickered with confusion. How is random brain activity helpful? Before Dr. Quindar could answer, the chamber doors opened. A small group of humans entered, led by a young woman with friendly eyes and messy hair. Sorry we are late, said Jin, the human researcher who had been invited to explain her species' abilities. Traffic was terrible, and then we stopped for ice cream. The entire council stared at her. Here was a being who could survive in environments that killed the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, and she was apologizing for being late because of ice cream. Please, said Ambassador Thexmal, explain to us how your people survive in the forbidden zones. Jin sat down and thought for a moment. Well, I guess we just do not fight them. When weird things happen, we roll with it. Roll with it? Doctor? Quindar asked. You know, go with the flow. If gravity decides to work sideways, we walk on the walls. If time goes backward, we enjoy seeing things happen in reverse. Fighting the weirdness just makes everything harder. Council Member Zex, a crystalline being who thought in pure mathematics, spoke up. But how do you maintain sanity when the laws of physics stop working? Jin laughed. Who says the laws of physics stop working? Maybe they just work differently there. Back on Earth, we have a saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Same idea. Dr. Soul, an older human with gray hair, stood up. If I may add something, he said. My species has always lived with chaos. Our planet had earthquakes, storms, floods, volcanic eruptions, things that could kill us without warning or reason. Most species evolved on stable worlds, Soul continued. Predictable climates, regular seasons, safe environments, but Earth was never safe. We learned to adapt quickly because the ones who could not adapt died. Dr. Quindar's tentacles writhed with excitement. You are saying humans evolved specifically to handle unpredictable situations? In a way, yes, Sewell agreed. We learned not to depend too much on things staying the same. When everything can change in a moment, you get good at changing with it. Jin nodded. Plus, we are really good at finding patterns in chaos. Humans can look at a bunch of random events and somehow see connections that help us survive. But the, entities in the Forbidden Zones, Ambassador Thexmal said, they are not random. They are actively hostile to ordered thinking. Are they? Jin asked. Or are they just different? When Tai talks to the entities in Omega-1, they seem pretty friendly. Maybe they only seem hostile to people who are trying to force them into logical boxes. Dr. Soul walked to the display screen. May I show something? With permission, he activated a recording from Earth. It showed humans dealing with a natural disaster, a hurricane that had destroyed most of a city. But instead of panic or despair, the humans were working together, helping each other, even laughing as they shared stories. This hurricane killed hundreds of people and destroyed billions of dollars of property, Soul explained. But look at the survivors. They are not broken. They are adapting, rebuilding, finding hope in the middle of destruction. This is our nature, Jin added. When faced with impossible situations, we do not try to understand them completely. We just figure out how to live with them. Dr. Quindar was frantically taking notes. So when you encounter reality-distorting environments, you treat them like natural disasters, something to survive rather than understand? Sort of, Jin said, but also something to make friends with if possible. The entities in the zones are not really enemies. They are just very different neighbors. Council member Vix flickered brighter. But your survival in these zones seems to violate fundamental laws of psychology. Exposure to impossible concepts should cause madness. Saul smiled. Define madness. If madness means thinking in ways that do not follow logical patterns, then maybe humans are already a little mad. And maybe that is exactly what we need to be. Jin pulled out a small device and showed a video. This is my daughter playing with building blocks. Watch what she does. The video showed a 3-year-old human child stacking blocks in impossible ways. The blocks should have fallen down, but somehow they stayed balanced in defiance of gravity. The child was not using any technology. She was just playing. Children do this all the time, Jin explained. They have not learned yet that certain things are impossible, so they just do them anyway. Maybe adults in the Forbidden Zones work the same way. Dr. Quindar's mind was racing. You are suggesting that human survival in the zones is based on innocence? Not exactly innocence, Sewell said. More like flexibility of thought. We do not have rigid ideas about how reality should work. If reality wants to work differently, we adapt our thinking instead of trying to force reality to change. Ambassador, Thexmal was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Are you saying that the Forbidden Zones are not actually dangerous? They are just incompatible with logical thinking? Maybe, Jin said. Or maybe they are dangerous to people who are afraid of them. Fear makes you rigid, and rigid things break easily. If you stay flexible, you can bend without breaking. The entities might even be trying to help, Sewell added. In their own way. They just think so differently from most species that their help looks like an attack. Dr. Quindar looked at his data again. Everything was starting to make sense in a completely nonsensical way. The Forbidden Zones were not places where reality broke down. They were places where reality worked according to different rules, rules that required flexible, adaptive thinking to understand. And humans, shaped by millions of years of surviving chaos, were the only species in the galaxy naturally equipped to handle such flexibility. One more question, Dr. Quindar said. Do you think other species could learn to survive in the zones the way humans do? Jin and Saul looked at each other. Maybe, Jin said slowly. But it would mean learning to think like humans. Learning to be comfortable with not understanding everything. Learning to be a little bit crazy, Sewell added with a smile. The council sat in stunned silence, finally understanding why humans were the only species that could survive in the forbidden zones. It was not technology or special powers. It was simply the ability to remain sane in insane situations by becoming a little insane themselves. 6 months had passed since the council officially designated humans as the sole authorized operators within all forbidden zones. The decision had caused quite a stir across the galaxy, but the results spoke for themselves. For the first time in galactic history, the mysterious zones were becoming productive instead of just dangerous. Captain Yule stood on the bridge of the newly upgraded Soul's Promise, watching 3 different alien science vessels maintaining a careful distance from Zone Alpha 12. His ship had been equipped with the finest communication arrays the galaxy could provide, turning it into a mobile command center for zone operations. "Captain," called Sue from her communications station, "Dr. Velnix from the Altarian research ship is asking for today's collection schedule." "Tell him we will have the quantum samples ready by 1600 hours, Yule replied, "and remind him to keep his ship at least 50 kilometers from the zone boundary. Last week his sensors gave Hyun a headache." Through the main viewport, Yule could see the research station they had built at the edge of Alpha 12. It was a strange sight. A perfectly normal space station, sitting next to a region where space itself seemed to be having colorful dreams. Purple, lightning danced between structures made of crystallized music, while gravity moved in slow spirals that painted trails of light across the void. Inside the zone, Engineer Bo was having his daily chat with an entity the science teams had nicknamed Professor Twisty. The entity existed as a mathematical equation that enjoyed teaching physics to anyone willing to listen. Today's lesson was about why circles were actually squares when nobody was looking. "Fascinating data coming through," reported Dr. Nari from the science station. "Professor Twisty just explained how to make energy flow backward through time. The Altarians are very excited." Bo's voice crackled over the radio. "Professor says hello to everyone. He wants to know if anyone has questions about making purple taste like music." Dr. Velnix, the Altarian scientist, responded immediately. "Please ask the professor if this relates to his theory about edible mathematics." The communication went back and forth, with Bo serving as translator between beings who thought in normal logic and entities who thought in beautiful impossibilities. It had become routine work, but the scientific discoveries flowing out of the zones were revolutionizing galactic understanding of reality. On the far side of the galaxy, Engineer Day was installing the first permanent human outpost in Zone Omega-1. The facility looked like a normal research station, except that some of the walls faced directions that did not exist, and the windows showed views of yesterday's sunset. "How is the construction going?" asked Tay over the communication link. "Pretty good," Day replied, tightening a bolt that existed in 7 dimensions. "The foundation is solid, even though solid means something different here. The entities have been very helpful." Around him, beings made of living geometry were helping to position equipment. They could not touch normal matter directly, but they were excellent at giving directions. One entity, who appeared as a triangle with feelings, was explaining the best places to put the coffee machine. "Coffee machine is very important," the triangle said in a voice that sounded like the memory of wind. "Coffee brings happiness. Happiness makes reality work better." Dai nodded seriously. The entities in Omega-1 had developed strong opinions about coffee over the months of human presence. They did not drink it themselves, but they loved the emotions that coffee created in humans. Happy humans, they discovered, were much easier to communicate with than confused or frightened ones. Back at the council headquarters, Ambassador Thexmal was reviewing reports that would have been considered impossible a year ago. Humans were not just surviving in the forbidden zones, they were thriving. More importantly, they were making the zones safer for everyone. The psychological distortion effects have decreased by 60% in zones with permanent human presence, Dr. Quindar reported. It appears the entities become less hostile when they have friendly contact with sentient beings. The humans are teaching them how to interact with normal reality, added Dr. Kirok, who had become the council's leading expert on zone phenomena. The entities want to communicate, but they never learned how to do it safely. Thexmal looked at the latest request from the Exploration Division. 3 new forbidden zones had been discovered in the Outer Rim, and the Council wanted human teams to investigate them. What had once been desperate emergency situations were now routine work orders. "Have we learned anything about training other species for zone work?" he asked. Dr. Quindar's tentacles drooped slightly. "Limited success. The Velthari research team managed to spend 15 minutes in Zone Beta 6 before requiring evacuation. The Krugen volunteers lasted 3 minutes before their mental defenses collapsed entirely. The problem," explained Dr. Kirok, "is that most species cannot turn off their logical thinking processes. Even when they try to be flexible, their brains keep trying to impose order on chaos. What about the humans who are training them?" "Engineer Bo has had the most success," Dr. Quindar said. "His introduction to weird thinking courses are popular, but the results are mixed. Most aliens can learn to accept small impossibilities, like objects that are 2 colors at once. But major reality distortions still cause mental breakdown. It may simply be that humans are uniquely suited for this work," Dr. Kirok concluded. "Their evolutionary history of adapting to chaos gives them abilities that cannot be easily taught." Meanwhile, in Zone Sigma 7, the place where this all began, Day was finishing his work shift and preparing to head home. The communication relay he had been fixing 6 months ago was now part of a much larger network connecting all the human outposts in the zone. Around him, the purple lightning storms had grown calmer and more beautiful. The entities that lived in the storms had learned to create patterns that humans found pleasant to look at. In return, the humans had taught them songs from Earth, which the entities performed by turning themselves into living music. "Good night, everyone," Day called out as he packed his tools. "See you tomorrow." The storm entities flickered in patterns that meant farewell and safe travels, and thank you for the coffee. They had become genuinely fond of their human visitors, especially the ones who remembered to bring snacks. As Day's repair ship headed back to normal space, he thought about how much his job had changed. 6 months ago, he was just a maintenance worker fixing broken equipment. Now he was part of the most important project in galactic history, helping to bridge the gap between normal reality and the impossible realms beyond. His communication system chimed with a new message from Captain Yul. "Day, we just received word about 3 new zones in the Outer Rim. The Council is asking if we can send teams to investigate. Are you interested?" Day smiled and keyed his response. "Of course. When do we leave?" It had become the new normal for humanity. When the galaxy discovered something impossible and dangerous, they called the humans. When reality stopped making sense, humans arrived with coffee and toolboxes and friendly attitudes, ready to make friends with whatever strangeness they found. The forbidden zones were no longer forbidden. They were humanity's frontier, places where the universe experimented with new ways of being, and humans were the interpreters who helped the rest of the galaxy understand what was possible when you stopped limiting yourself to what seemed logical. As Captain Yul prepared the mission briefings for the Outer Rim zones, he reflected on how far they had come. Humanity had entered the galactic community as a young, small species with simple technology, but they had found their place as the mediators between normal space and the impossible realms that lay beyond. The galaxy was a much larger and stranger place than anyone had imagined, and humans, with their talent for embracing chaos and making friends with the impossible, were perfectly suited to explore every weird corner of it. In the Outer Rim, 3 new zones waited to be discovered. They contained wonders and impossibilities that would challenge everything the galaxy thought it knew about reality. But they also contained new friends, new teachers, and new ways of understanding the universe. And humanity was ready to meet them all, armed with nothing but curiosity, coffee, and the ability to remain calm when the universe decided to turn itself inside out just to see what would happen. The age of exploration had begun again, and this time, humans were leading the way into the beautiful chaos that lay beyond the edge of known space.